Jos, he's going to be our first speaker here today. He's a game developer from the Netherlands, and he's been doing some really, really interesting work with Bevy, and I'm sure he's going to tell you some really cool stuff. All right?
I get to find out what a polder is every day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right. Bit of a spoiler right there. All right, is everything working? It's working. Just at the start, that's incredible. All right. Hi guys, thank you so much for coming here. Yeah, I wanted to start out with a pretty interesting quote that I want to leave hanging over the rest of this talk. We are often, we can get a bit carried away in giving a lot of opinions and analysis. I'll give a lot of opinions in this talk. But it's important to remember that practice, it has the final word. Doing it yourself, and just seeing what works for you, always keep that in mind. All right. Again, thank you all for coming. I'll be talking about Polders, a game I've been working on for quite some time now, using the Bevy engine. And so I'm Jos Feenstra. I label myself as a spatial software developer and a technical artist. I'm the co-founder of a small indie studio called Geofront, which is a Delft-based indie game studio. If anyone is here in the field of computer-aided design, building information modeling, or GIS, come talk to me. I love to pretend that I'm still part of those industries. So why should you care about this whole talk? The thing I want to discuss next to okay, so what do you do with Bevy? What do you do with Rust? Is this interesting phenomena, this joke that has been going around in the whole Rust community, which is that we design 50 game engines and 5 games for some reason. Why is that the case? That's a question that I think I know the answer of. I'm not certain, but I want to see if we together can get to a clear answer. I must say that I don't want to, it's completely fine to work on game engines. This is not a talk to bash on folks that love to just build game engines. I'm a huge user of all of that effort and energy. So that's the last thing that I want to point out here right now. But if some of you are in the room looking to build your game in Rust, or looking to do anything else, just a creative, artistic pursuit, and if you have found that you're struggling with getting that implemented in Rust, then this might be interesting for you. All right, a small little overview, but let me quickly get you started with some footage. We're in a cinema right now, so might as well show you a trailer of the game I've been working on. Let's see if this wants to work. Thank you. Yes, yes. I think it might be important to explain to you guys where I'm coming from. You might understand the way I operate from that point of view. For me, all of this started just by being a kid. And it started with shapes. I loved shapes. I loved, having, I had my whole room filled with Escher paintings. And I was doing a whole lot of origami. And yeah, I just loved all things geometrical, all things with a pattern. And it was no wonder that I then started to study architecture as my main occupation. As an architect, you're always questioning, like, why is the world shaped the way it is? Like, what's the shape of the world and why? Like, for example, this building right here. Hands for everyone who knows this building. All right, some of you. This is Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, one of the most famous pieces of villa architecture in the world. And you might be wondering, like, if you were to design a villa, why would you build it on top of a waterfall? Like, wouldn't it be very nice to have it as a view, to wake up in your living room and then look at a waterfall? But for some reason, this architect decided to put it on top of the waterfall. Like, why? And why this shape? Why this layered system? And these are one of the many mysteries that you tackle as an architect. If you have the answer, please come talk to me after the talk. I can answer, but I don't want to spoil it. And also, if we're going out for drinks tonight in the inner city of Utrecht, you might be wondering, like, why is this entire city shaped the way it is? Like, why is it layered like this? Why are there? It would be very much handy to have, if a boat comes here and has a lot of goods, to have that, well, immediately on the level of the shops. Why did they decide to make this lower area? So yeah, shapes. But there's also a part of me that really wanted to get analytical, get practical. So after finishing my bachelor's in architecture, I started diving into the Masters of Geoinformatics, which has you looking at the land, the shapes of the world, and analyzing it and trying to replicate that in the computer. And then one day, I came across a little tool, a little game, a little toy called Townscaper by Oscar Stolberg. And I was absolutely blown away by this thing. It's seemingly so simple. It's just a sand. If you don't know it, it's just a sandbox environment. You can just build blocks. But by building these blocks, you explain something that's very hard to it explains something that's very hard to explain for most architects. It's city morphology that's encased, and that you try to, like, while you're building in this whole tool, you see how the landscape starts to form around these shapes. You've built a river, and like, now, okay, I need some houses next to that river. You start to understand why cities are shaped the way they are by just playing around. And at the time, I was staring at point cloud data from the Netherlands. And that got me thinking of, like, could you use a game to tell how the Dutch landscape was formed? Like, can you actually, without saying a word, explain to people how things are the way they are, just because they experienced it as being logical inside of a game? So geography for autodidact. So I set to work. How to make a Dutch landscape. Well, being a geoinformatic nerd, I immediately thought of a terrain model as being the first major component of designing that. And I immediately had a question of, like, okay, do I want to go for, like, a strict grid, or do I go for a very free-form approach from, for example, a lovely game of Tiny Glade, written in Rust, by the way. I don't know if you guys know that. Probably you do. The problem here, of course, is that this is a way too much of a Manhattan approach to a Dutch inner city. And this was, for my case, a bit too free-form. Like, I wanted to almost force the player sometimes into designing the city in a way. And once again, Oscar Stolberg, the maker of Townscaper, presented me with the ideal solution, which is this Goldilocks zone of a grid that is particular. Like it's a binary, there's something on this tile or there's nothing on this tile. But the structure that it creates is quite organic. And you can see that a pattern like this is a very good approximation of how the organic nature of a city, an old city like the inner city of Zwolle, like how that is formed. You can see those patterns. So how does one make a Stolberg grid? I looked back on how I used to design geometry as an architect, and I briefly also worked in the CAD industry designing something called parametric glasses. So these were glasses to fit a human's face perfectly based on the scanning data of a face. So you have all this nice software laying about inside of this visual programming language called Grasshopper. And I wondered, like, okay, this existing software, it looks nice, I can use this quite well. Can I use that to basically, kickstart this whole parametric or this whole geometry journey? And yes, I could, but it was encased in all sorts of like layers and layers and layers of software. I would have had to make certain parts run on the cloud, basically on a server, because it just I wasn't able to license this or to decompile this in a way that I could use all these geometric tools inside of a desktop client-side application. And after a lot of fiddling, I came across the conclusion, I need to write my own geometry kernel. And with geometry kernel, I mean like basically just a library filled with lines, points, triangles, intersections, and everything you need to make geometry automated. Basically anything you need inside of Blender, except from the actual environment itself to click around in. And that created a huge grocery list of like, okay, yeah, I want irregular grids, and for this whole game, I want some asset pipeline, maybe some wave function collapse, if anyone knows what that is, and all sorts of questions, like which language to use, what engine, what ecosystem, what libraries, and it was just too much. The task is huge. And this led me to my first sort of major guiding light in this whole creative pursuit, and that's solve et coagula. So divide and conquer. Start very small. Start with the absolute basics and work your way up from there. For me, that was a way to, to get away from the endless complexity of what's the best tool out there, what's the best approach, which engine, what library. So do the simplest thing first. So I did the simplest thing that I could imagine, and that's to build a very tiny engine, it was sort of a Three.js clone inside of JavaScript, just raw vanilla JavaScript, no libraries, no modules or anything. And you can scan that thing. It's a great idea during a talk to have some people staring at their phone. But if you want to, you can. And you'll see that there are a lot of web demos that they're still online, I think, I hope. This was my way of just hacking around and getting a foothold in the whole world of parametric modeling and automating geometry, but without any tools, without any dependencies basically interfering. So I made some little cute demos. This is marching cubes, if you're familiar with that. And you can see me already trying out this sort of townscapery grid. And the question now becomes okay, this is fine, this is cool. Can we scale this up? Well, yeah, you could. But here the practice thing comes back into place. Practically, I couldn't find a way to really scale with this. I couldn't see myself building a whole game inside of working like this. So I needed something better. And what more than our Lord and Savior, Rust. And I get a lot of questions of why aren't you using Unreal or Unity? And for me, going to those engines gets me back to that whole thing I was using at during being an architect, of having some tools, but not completely owning that stack, not completely understanding what's happening, and that biting you in the butt at some point of the development. And again, I can give you a lot of opinions, I can give you a lot of analysis, but this in practice, this just ended up working. And especially the mono repos that Rust provides are just a fantastic way to basically do creative coding. So using a mono repo, and I found myself like on a very good balance between getting the freedom to make whatever small code project you want, but then also being able to take the reusable parts of whatever demo you made and putting it into a reusable library to be used for a larger scale project. Bevy was my partner in crime in that whole adventure. Bevy is, let's say, it is the biggest game engine in the whole Rust ecosystem, and a fantastic way to just hit the ground running. What I really liked about it is that it really helps with the pain points of Rust. Like, it really abstracts away certain parts that you go into when you design your own game engine, like reusing parts of or mutable access. And yeah, that led to a whole bunch of other like programmer art, and me trying to recreate those same demos inside of Rust and Bevy. And that also led me to, with that whole ecosystem in place, I was finally able to really get a foothold and really build some like proper geometry kernel. And I can go into the specifics of this, the polyhedron data model. But what I would rather, this is all like under the hood stuff for if you want to really build geometry from scratch, then you will have to build something approximating a mesh. But this is a long story. I'll skip over that for now. What I especially want to talk to you about is that, like, what made this work? What led this project or me able to, do all of this without me going into the same problems? I can't read. Okay. Thank you. So I kept on wondering about this, like what makes this whole Rust world work for me instead of the game engines, instead of doing this all in JavaScript. And I think it's just a conceit of like, okay, I'm just gonna make it the dumbest, shittiest code that I can think of. Like, I really think that was the way I could get over the hurdle of the 50 game engines and the 5 games, is that I was just able or just allowed myself to write shitty code. So I Control F in my code base of like, okay, where I'm looking for shitty code. So I looked up shit and I got like 10 results back. Here's some shitty stuff that I didn't really figure out, or I was like, okay, it's fine, let's continue. And of course, I'm presenting this as a bit of a joke, but I think this might, I think we don't talk about this enough in the whole Rust ecosphere. And this is where I'm gonna get really like architectural and cheesy. So Nietzsche came up with this idea, or he made famous this idea of what should great art contain. And to his mind, it's always consisted of a struggle between two forces, the Apollonian and the Dionysian. The Apollonian is the art of order, it's the art of structure, of beauty. And the Dionysian is the art of chaos. It's indulgence, it's seduction, it is creative energies, but the more dark creative energies. And to Nietzsche, these two need to be in constant battle if you want to make good art. And I think this is the point that I'm trying to make. I think we do need more Dionysian Rust. I think we're doing a whole lot of work to make Rust safe and structured and very robust. But what we might be missing is that we need to counterbalance that with being able to just hit the ground running, just get it to work. Just, I don't care how you do it. I don't care what paradigms you use. Just get it to work. Another way to put it is to basically think of it as investment. Like you can put all of your chips into safe, low-risk investments, or you can put them in high-risk, big payoffs investments. And I got this from a fantastic book called Anti-Fragile by Nissam Nicholas Taleb. And in that book, he basically he asks the question: is it better to be safe, or is playing it safe the riskiest move of all? And so I think that Rust and Bevy allowed me to that created so much safety in the code base, so much structure, so much tools to do great things, that it allowed me to do disgusting things. It allowed me to do whatever I needed, knowing that I can refactor it always. I can always fall back on the structure and safety that is the foundation of this whole stack. So, getting back to the geometry. So with all of that Dionysian engine stuff in place, I was able to create a sort of decent looking grid based on the sequence as described by Oscar Stolberg, the creator of Downscaper. And the great thing about not just modeling this, but doing it in a procedural manner is that you can start playing around with, basically how it's all procedural. So you can be like, okay, now what if I generate or use the same script, but I start out with a donut, or I start out with a cylinder or a sphere. And that leads to interesting surfaces. So when you start turning this into land, you can see okay, if we use a flat plane, it starts to look like, okay, this is starting to approximate a Dutch landscape, probably, maybe with a lot of windmills. I don't think this is quite Dutch, but it is interesting, right? It's you just start playing around with your code. You start being like, okay, what if I just add all of this code, but I use it on a sphere? And wow, okay, interesting. We're now playing Mario Galaxy, I guess. And oh wait, okay. Well, maybe this is a bit weird. And do I want this as world? Okay, okay. Maybe keep it flat for the Dutch game. All right. Are you guys all still with me? I don't. What's the time currently? I have 6 more minutes. All right. 15. Wow. Okay. I've been talking at a rapid pace. Thank you guys for keeping track. Lastly, I want to show you guys a little bit more about the game that was cooked up in this whole Dionysian manner. So this game that I've been creating is called Polders. It's a sandbox crafting game, and all the footage that you see is in early alpha. And the whole point of this game is to trick players into building the Netherlands. So all the mechanics, all the systems in place are all designed after a real cultural phenomenon in the past of the Netherlands. And that makes a player explore the way the landscape was created as they explore the game. And this is the sort of scenarios that creates, these little quaint Dutch towns. We have some villagers, some cows, a church. This is the main game loop. So you build things that produces a lot of products, like cheese, like your stroopwafels, like anything Dutch, basically. You trade that away, as you do as a Dutch person. You don't keep anything for yourself, you trade it away. And then that gives you enough resources to then start building more things. And the water is a constant ally and a constant threat in this whole scenario. So as I was saying, I really want the player to experience how the land was shaped by culture and also by nature. And some ways in which we did this is by making the polders. I promised to explain the polder. So what is a polder? A polder is an enclosed piece of land that the Dutch have made over the years to basically create farmland out of the sea or lakes. And I simulate that in the game by giving the player not enough space and forcing them to basically create enclosed pieces of land that they will need to drain. But the land isn't drained by themselves. They will need to dig sloten, ditches, to actually transport all that water to the windmills. The player will also be kind of forced to build canals, because most of these buildings need to be reachable by foot and by waterway. And that leads you to building canals by default, basically. Some interesting thing I came across when researching for this game is that these knotwilgen, I don't know if you guys have looked at the Dutch landscape and noticed some of these trees. I hope you do after this talk. These are actually used to strengthen the dikes. I didn't know this. So the roots of these things actually keep the waterfront in check. And that's why they're always like planted in a row next side to these ditches. So we added that. So the waterfront, the dikes are actually strengthened by placing knotwilgen in the game. And the landscape is also changed by water. So in the past, the Dutch used to call the water often the water wolf, the terrible creature that can sometimes like take a bite out of your dike. These little like enclosed, these interesting pools almost, you might have seen them in the Dutch landscape. These are actually scars. This is scar tissue. When a dike breaks, there's actually the force of the water is so great that it actually creates this whirlpool, creating a huge sinkhole, which is almost impossible to fill up with a dike again. So they're forced to build around it. So everywhere where you see these lakes close to a dike, you know that somewhere, at some time in the past, the dikes broke here. And people have defended themselves against it by building their farms on top of like small hills called terpen, which is also, of course, all allowed by the player. So currently we're working on adding some more exciting visuals based on like the old Dutch paintings. It's fantastic. And we're deepening the gameplay. We want to make some more interesting simulation aspects to it. All right. So what's the conclusion of this talk? And what's the conclusion of the question of like the 50 game engines and 5 games? My answer was Dionysian Rust. I'm very curious to hear about what your answers are. But for me personally, it was just the allowance given to myself to be dirty, to just make the ugliest code imaginable, and trusting that with all the great libraries that have, thought their systems really through, you'll be okay in the end. All right, before we stop the talk, I want to quickly do a shameless plug. We really want to prove that it's possible to make games without like Unity or Unreal and create them in more interesting manners, and keeping the whole art of designing these systems alive. And for that, I can really use your help in supporting this game. So please do wishlist it if it seems something that you would be interested in. Or join our Discord if you want to see all the in-depth updates. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Do you want to do a Q&A?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Now, are there any questions? Please come to the front. And
One thing real quick while they're coming up. Do keep in mind, we'd love to have questions now, but also the speaker will be available later. We'll have the social events, so please don't feel like your question won't be answered sooner or later.
Hi, I'm one of the Bevy maintainers. This is my day job to maintain Bevy, and I'm beyond thrilled that people are actually making games with a game engine. That's the point.
And I completely forgot to shout you out. Alice, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak here.
Of course,
I owe it all to her. So, and please also thank the Bevy engine for doing all of their amazing work. I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah, so on that note, you've talked about how Bevy is great for TCS, for making the parts of some of the challenges of less painful. What parts were still very painful for you when working with Bevy?
Yeah, I think the parts where I would like a bit more Dionysian-ness. Let's put it like that. For me, the biggest pain points right now, and I don't know if they're fixed, I'm on an old version, as happens with projects like this, is sometimes Bevy can still crash if you are using, for example, inserts instead of try inserts. And that, in the process, hurt me. There might be ways to circumvent that, but in practice, most of the time, when a crash like that happens, it creates no issue for the whole game. Something has been added to something that was already trying to be deleted, so whatever, we can just ignore it. So if, and again, I don't know if it's fixed, but if there were to be a flag of just ignore everything that's not absolutely critical and accept any error that is not completely frying your laptop, that would be fantastic.
So if you're feeling like you really want to take on an excessive amount of suffering, you could update to Bevy 0.16, where that was one of our major features. So
fantastic.
Fundamentally, we found that, man, we're crashing way too much. We should stop panicking everywhere, and we should instead actually return results and then allow the end user to configure, hey, we have this unhandled error, how do you want to handle it? And so you could just question mark and pipe all the errors up and then not crash and instead just log them.
And this only shows how much you guys are interacting with the community and truly understanding what the pain points are. So thank you. Thank you.
No, I didn't.
This is a question from the YouTube chat.
Oh, look at that.
How do you keep up with Bevy versions? And do you always keep your Bevy version?
What did I just talk about the Dionysian part? No, I should be updating. But it's hard to if you're in a sprint of okay, I want to show this to a publisher tomorrow or in 2 weeks. It's sometimes hard to permit yourself to be okay, let's update the engine, because it's I'm also using a lot of custom shaders. I know that those parts change a lot between versions. There was one update that really took me a while to reconfigure and made me kind of scared. And besides that, Bevy, I'm now using Bevy 0.12, and they decided to use the little cute planet thing as the logo of that update. So I also feel obliged to still be in this version. No. You don't want to know.
What I'm wondering is how because Bevy right now has tons of many features, but not a lot of discoverability, because a lot of things are quite hidden under the surface, deep down the ocean of the docks. You'll find observers, which are a rather new feature. There's little videos about it. If you want to learn how to use them properly, you'll have to dive into examples, open source code bases on GitHub, and see how other people do it without real tutorials. How did you learn from it?
Very good question. Yes, and I also stumbled upon this. Sorry, the mic is on the...
Can we have your microphone for the next speaker, maybe?
Oh, I'm hearing it somewhere. I hope you guys don't. Very good question. And I stumbled upon this at the start as well. The way I got around that was basically accepting that I was, again, gonna write ugly code. So instead of spending my time trying to deep dive and trying to understand everything, for example, you can see that in some of the examples there were a lot of mesh manipulation things, of scouring meshes. And for me, it was more cost effective to just figure out how to do that myself and build my own mesh class, basically, than to see how I can mutate vertices dynamically inside of the Bevy structure. So here I would also invite you to, and I know that this is a bit of a weird point to make, but I would invite you to just try to figure it out and accept that it won't be perfect, it won't be the idiomatic way, but just see if you can somehow make it work, and accept that at some point you will figure it out. You will notice oh wait, they thought of this whole situation. Now I can like remove all these parts of my code. That's what I would recommend. So taking a Dionysian approach, basically. Does that answer your question? Or
yes, it does. And if it does go wrong, then you can always refactor later.
Sorry, could you repeat that to the mic?
It does answer my question. And as you said during the presentation, if it does go wrong or you want to improve your just go quick approach, then it's easy to refactor because of the nature of the safety.
Exactly. Yes.
We have time for 2 more questions.
I found that trade-off really interesting, where you have the full grid, which is very constraining, and the complete freedom. And of course, the game is all about constraints. I was wondering if you've given it any thought, where you allow that trade-off to the user, where the user of the game player, can choose in his world modeling what kind of grid he wants.
Good question. And this is definitely a stretch goal, where now that this is in place, like I think this is also one of the things that is interesting when you're developing a game, is that you can explore the design space of the game. That's almost like what you need to do as a game designer. So now having all these structures in place, that a user could technically choose whatever grid they want. Like I don't know how that fits into the whole "let's people design the Netherlands as it was designed" phenomenon. But I'm definitely exploring to open up all those generation options to the user now that all of this code is just running in real time at the user's side, which is, not what you see in every game. So yes, very good question, and I will definitely add that.
We have time for 1 more question. Anyone have one final question?
I was wondering if there's any other major libraries or other tooling that you used in the game and can recommend, or anything that you are maybe missing.
Any major tool? Well, there are lots of little tools that you include as you need them. Like you need a clipboard, so you need this, you need that. But specifically, I wanted to stray away from that reasoning for the purposes of this talk, to be like maybe writing whatever you want to make. Maybe writing that is not a matter of choosing the most perfect library or knowing the most perfect library, but more just a willing of getting it done. And I think that comes first, and then seeing if there's something in the ecosystem that ties to that, what you're trying to make, is I think a secondary aspect to your vision, at least from my point of view as someone who tries to make art with an engine. Like I can totally respect other approaches for very different projects, of course, but I don't want to shout out any module specifically for getting that across. So, but thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You have some buffer.
There's the talk only ends now. Now is question time.
Oh.
It's early, so good job.
Wow.
Yeah, so thank you. First of all, let's thank the speaker very much. Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you.
It was also beautiful. My question was, did you do all your own artwork for that?
Most of the art you see is my programmer art.
Beautiful.
But I do want to give a huge shout out to Danielle, who's now actually truly upping it with. Let's go there. Ooh. The artwork you see in the back, this stuff, these are paint overs of. Also, this is Ruisdael, a classical Dutch painter. And we made this is not AI, by the way, this is a manual paint over. To figure out if we can take that style, take that the language that was used here, and see if we can translate that to a 21st century cute-looking interpretation of that same style. So I really want to make a huge shout out to Danielle, who's now also making these way more in line with 17th century Dutch architecture buildings. You can see the contrast right here. Like my dumb little approach of what a house is. I was like a little kid, and then seeing like what an actual house looked like at that point. And
well, thank you very, very much. It was an amazing, amazing talk, and we really appreciate it.